Rabbi Kivin is already Shloshim?
Shloshim was last Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, you see my haircut. Very observant. Start. What do you want to do?
Sounds good to start, I think.
Sounds good to start. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Kollel Chassidus. Tonight is the first yard site of the Rebbe Rashab. We'll get to that in a minute. So I figured the theme we'll have this week, next week, obviously should be on the Indian of Pesach. In the week before Pesach, in other words, this week, usually it was during this week, the Rebbe would come out to draw water from Ma'im Shalanu. Behind 770, there was a natural wellspring of water, which was found or discovered in the late 50s, early 60s. It was a different whole story. The Tashlich is what made it happen, instead of having to walk to botanical gardens, but that's a separate story. And from then onwards, Tashlich was in back of 770. And from this wellspring of water, that's where water was taken for the matzah bakery in Crown Heights for the Ma'im Shalanu. So during the first week of Nisan, the Rebbe would come out to draw water from this well, and this water was used to bake matzah the next day. And then the Rebbe would go, first it was to the library, later on it was in Gan Eden HaTachton. The Rebbe would go to take off the mitzvah of challah, and then send with the shliach going to Eretz Yisrael. He would send matzah. This was baked special for the Chassidim in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe would send with them boxes of matzahs, and they would go. Elal would do it for free, and that was done for many years. Later on, so the Rebbe used to go over to the library, and then in the middle mems, it changed towards the end of the mems. It changed, and it was in Gan Eden HaTachton itself, where the Rebbe would take off matzah, challah, make a bracha, take off challah, and then give the matzah. And sometimes he would send it with money for shlech mitzvah, and michtav kloli he would give. There was always different things. So I'm going to share with you some pictures that we have of this event of different years that are. So we'll start with the Ma'im Shalanu. So this is Tafshin Mem, 1980, 41 years ago. Okay. So here you see the Rebbe's in front. These are the big jars or bottles where they would store the water. So they would bring a hose. The tap for this was in the driveway between 770 and the library. So they would bring a hose and make a tap, and there was a table, as you can see. We'll see better in the other pictures. The Rebbe would then, from the hose, would fill up a cup, and from the cup he would pour it into one of these big jugs over there. They would usually do it 3 times, and then he left it all the rest for Rabbi Mentlik. It is done under the auspices of the yeshiva. So then they would then fill up all of the jugs of Maim Shalonu. Now, I understand that when you're living here in England, you don't see matzah bakeries. You just see ready-made matzahs. But in Crown Heights, there was a matzah bakery. And every night, as you learn in Shulchan Aruch, you take Maim Shalonu has to be taken between Shkia and Tzeis. So every night, the people from the matzah bakery or whoever was renting out the matzah bakery the next day would go to outside 770, and at that time would draw water from this alleyway. There was a tap over there, and fill up for water for the next day for Maim Shalonu. So this was a common thing happening every night of the week from after Hanukkah when the matzah bakery would open till the night before Pesach. So they would fill up enough water to last them, and there would be always extra. Obviously, the matzah bakery had storage. So here, the Rebbe would come and they would fill them up. So this is what the picture is. Did it change, Levi? Did the picture change now? It should change. No, someone answer me. Levi Cohen, hello. Is it still the same picture? So here you have still Toshin Mem. It's a bit of a brighter picture. Usually it's as it's getting dark. So you can see it was the Rebbe came out. Everybody here, there was now when the water came out, it looked like milk because there's fresh water coming through the hose and the tap. So if you look at it in the pictures, you see it looks very white. It looks like milk. Here there was pouring it in. Someone's Remetlik is here, so you can't see the jar. We'll see that later in other pictures. And he would pour it into the jar. And then the Rebbe would go back in. The Chassidim would sing Keli Ata. When this was happening, everybody would sing Keli Ata. This is already Tafshin Mem Gimel, 1983. So here the Rebbe is coming out from the front door. Now sometimes it was still quite cold, like you see here. The Rebbe is wearing a coat. Some years it was quite cold. And here you have Nissim Mendel behind the Rebbe and the mosquitoes, label grown, Benjamin Klein. There's the glass jar. The Rebbe is taking off the lid. You have here Zalman Shimon Dvorkin, who's the Rav, and Rabbi Weinberg. That was taking off the lid. Here you can see the tap, right? That was brought in from the house special for this occasion. And the Rebbe would first pour some water in and rinse the jar. You see there was pouring it in. He would rinse it and pour the water out, and then fill it again. Here you have Binyamin Gardetsky. This must be a Spielman, I think. Looks like one. Here the Rebbe is emptying out the jar. You see the Rebbe is holding the jar. He's swishing around the water, and then he'd swish it around and then pour it out and then put in usually 3 cupfuls. You see the water is white, but it's clear water just coming from the pressure of the hose. It comes out white. Here you see by the time the end of the cup it's already clear. And the Rebbe would pour it in. 3 cupfuls the Rebbe would pour in. Here's Tafshin Mem Daled, 1980. Or Memvov. Rabbi Zalman Shimon wasn't there anymore. You have Rabbi Heller there, and the Lapkov. No, this is Memches already. This is already Memches. Rabbi Mentlik passed away, so the Lapkovsky brothers, Rabbi Zalman and Rabbi Yisrael Lapkovsky, they were in charge. It was always done, like I said, under the yeshiva. And here they already, instead of saving the Rebbe to have to open these jugs, they already had it open, covered with paper. And there's already here's the tap. And the Rebbe is filling it up. This is already Tafshin Nun on an Aleph. It's already warmer. The Rebbe is not wearing a coat, looks like. I mean, he is. Here there is, you see, emptying out the jug. There was emptying out. He's wearing a coat over here. Pouring it in. Yeah, there is wearing a coat. So this is Tafshin Nun. Nun Aleph, it was warmer, and there was without a coat. We'll soon see. So someone's standing there turning on and off the tap from the Rebbe to make it easier. Here's another year. The Rebbe's coming out. Maybe that was Memtes, and this is Nun.
Maybe from the here, it looked like it was Memtes. No?
That was crossed my. That crossed my mind. Yes, that was Memtes. So this is Tafshin Nun. Again, there was mixing it, cleaning out the jug and pouring it out. This one's still with a coat. So Nun Aleph was without a coat. Teshuvah Tess came from the house to do Ma'am Shalonu and then went back home. Menches, I mean. Shalom Zarchi there and back. Here it goes. Pouring it in. The white water. And all the while, everyone's singing Keliata. Beautiful, beautiful picture. It's just
Tenenbaum. Is that Tenenbaum from the bakery?
This is Yitzi Tenenbaum, the one who owns the bakery. Yeah. Then it was him and Dabrowski bakery. Yeah. So you see the water is in. They didn't fill it up all the way. He filled up 3 cupfuls and left the rest for them. There was waving, the singing Keliata, never finished, never waved. This is already in Aleph. The last time they ever did it, and here there was in his kapota. It was warmer weather, so he didn't wear a coat. Going through this a bit quicker because I want to go to the next event, which is the next day. Don't know who that boy is. It's a bunch of pictures of the same. They was filling it up. Okay, so that's the end of that one. Moving on. So then, the next day, usually it was the next day, then I would then go to the library. Did it change? Do you see the picture of the library now? Yeah, so this is, they would give out in the library, they would send it with a shliach, like I said, to Eretz Yisrael, and take off challah. So you have over here, this is Lamed Ches. This is Tavshin Lamed Ches. And I don't know who this is. This was the shliach. This is Kuti Rap, who he was the one who arranged. He was a shliach for Kennedy Airport. So he would arrange with Halal. And here, the event is over. And the Rebbe, I don't know what this is. Maybe he gave him a pound, whatever. The Rebbe had a siddur with him to make the bracha, I guess. And they're going back to 770. This is a different year. This is, I think, Mem Gimel. And there was coming out of the library after the event. Oh, this is the same event, but the pictures aren't in order. The Rebbe is going in. Now, at the end, I'm going to tell you about a beautiful story, what happened 40 years ago, tomorrow night. We'll get to that soon. Here is Mem Daled, the Rebbe walking from 770 to the library, going up the steps to the library, going into the library. And this is what it would have looked like outside. Now, there was a crowd gathered because in Toshim Mem Aleph, 40 years ago, the Rebbe spoke a sicha. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Here the Rebbe is coming out. You have here David Mendelbaum. And he's waiting for the shluchim to come out. And they would take the boxes into the car. And the Rebbe would watch them leave and stood on the porch. The Rebbe is standing there on the porch waiting for them to go off. And the Rebbe is going down the stairs. He's going back to 770. This is 1984. You can see it's cold still. I was wearing his coat. Okay, that's that. Then later on, like I said, it wasn't in the library, but it was in 770, outside the Rebbe's room. Again in Atachtin. So here you have the boxes, and the Rebbe would open up one of the bags under paper, and the Rebbe would break off a piece of matzah and put it into a bag and make the bracha of lahafrish challah. And then they would seal all the boxes. You see all the matzahs, the old-fashioned way, the way the bakery does it, wrapped in paper. Artzeinu Hagdesha, Ahak, box number 9. Okay, so the Rebbe would help them pack it and close it, and they would give this particular year. This is Rabbi Rosenfeld, who runs the Sem in Tzfas. He was the shliach that year. They were giving him a michtav klali together with dollars. They would usually give a pack of a few $100 bills and say to give it to the Vad of Kfar Chabad, and they would give out the matzah to everyone. So here you have Rosenfeld, if you're familiar with him today. His beard is all white. and they would wrap it up in plastic so it shouldn't get any damp or any wet on the way, especially if it was a rainy day outside. So they would wrap it all up in plastic. There was all the chevra there, the shlemoshim who helped, and they would take the boxes and put them into a. Here, there was giving kuti wrap. His shlichas also shlich mitzvah, whatever it is, instructions about sending the matzah. And whoever was there, they would give a michtav kloli, and that was that. Okay. And this, just for the Shleimus Indian, so this was different years. In the airport, they take a picture for Elal, Kuti Rap, and Mayor Harlig was there. I don't know who this gentleman is. This is, you have the story tapes from him. Rabbi
Burston.
Rabbi Burston, he was involved with Kuti Rap then. And they would make a ceremony in the airport, in Kennedy Airport. Rabbi Burston talking, they would make a ceremony. They had mashke from the Rebbe. With the passengers. Here, this is Toshin Nun Beis. This is when Kuti Rap would put on a tie in honor of this occasion. And in a new Kuti. This is Toshin Mem Hey, 1985. Mutas Alidei Alal. It would be a good publicity for Alal as well. And this is Toshin Mem Tes. Yosel Aronov was the shliach to go. This is the back of the truck. And this is one year the kids. This is in the Persian Gulf, 1981. Okay, that just happens to be there. Okay. What I want to end off with is, there's no pictures of it, but just to tell you an interesting event that happened. So this is now coming up to 40 years tomorrow night. 40 years ago, as you saw in the Living Torah of this week, was Birchas Hachama as well, Wednesday morning. This week, Wednesday, Daled Nissen, the same Kvias. And Beis Nissen was on Monday. And from Manchester, they printed then the second edition of the Tanya with English translation. And Rabbi and Mrs. Jaffe, together with Beryl Perrin, traveled to New York to give the Rebbe, to present the Rebbe with those Tanyas, together with Herschel Gorman from London, the four of them. So the Rebbe came out to the library to do the matzah, as we just saw. There's no pictures of it, unfortunately, but there is a recording. And at that event, when the Rebbe gave the matzah, they presented, then in the library, they presented the Rebbe with the Tanyas. And this is the only time that this is Muga. In Likutei Siches, the Yuman, the diary, the minutes of this event is printed in Likutei Siches in Chelik Chav Beis, page 184. And basically, they came and they gave the Rebbe the Tanyas, and the Rebbe was very happy. The Rebbe gave a Tanya to Rabbi Jaffe, and one to Mrs. Jaffe, and one to Beryl Perrin, and one to Herschel Gorman. And he gave him one to give to Rabbi Sudak. And then the Rebbe took out a few 20-pound notes, and he gave each one of them a 20-pound note. The Rebbe gave also a Tanya to the Shliach, who was there from Eretz Yisrael. His name was Gorelik. And then the Rebbe asked for a fellow called Schneider. Schneider was a Russian immigrant who was there from Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe asked for him, and the Rebbe gave him one as well to give. And he gave them each. He gave to the British, he gave them 20-pound notes. And to the others, he gave them dollars. And he said to give it to by the Russians. He then gave matzah to Rabbi Jaffe and Mrs. Jaffe, and he gave it for Manchester, and he gave Herschel Gorman for London, and he gave Beryl Perrin. He said that since he was a traveling salesman, you travel all over, so you should take matzah with you to wherever you travel. And then the Rebbe gave the matzah to the shluchim in Eretz Yisrael. Then the Rebbe said that in the Reisen Stupmenzach. So, in the beginning, he said there was a crowd that gathered already outside. So the Rebbe said, in the Reisen Stupmenzach, we'll do this inside. At the end, the Rebbe said he wants to say a few words. So the Rebbe asked him if you'll all go out first, and then I will go out. So they all went out onto the porch, and the Rebbe stood by the door to the library, and the Rebbe spoke a sikha. And my mother-in-law says that before she knew it, she was completely surrounded and squashed by Bocher. She was the only woman in the middle of this whole thing. And Beryl Perrin was trying to protect her. And the Rebbe spoke a sikha for about 10 minutes. There was no tape recorder at the beginning, but there was very soon. And after 4 minutes, 5 minutes, a microphone came. You can hear it. The beginning you can hear because there's an ambulance and a police car. The Rebbe spoke a sikha. Now, what's relevant, interesting for us today is the Rebbe spoke then a sikha that it was that year was 120 years of the birth of the Rebbe Rashab, whose yard site was that day, Beis Nissen. This was in the evening before Ma'ariv. Which this year, now we're coming up to Alf Nissen also of 120, starting the 120th year of the Rebbe. So that Sikha has in it about 120. It has in it about publishing Tanya and about Pesach, and at the end, if I remember correctly, it's about the Birchas Hachama. So the Rebbe covered everything in that Sikha, and most significantly, the whole thing was Muga by the Rebbe, and including I think it's the only time, I haven't seen it anywhere else, including the details of this Yuman, of who the Rebbe gave and what he said, and this one stood here and stood there. It's all printed in Likutei Sichos, Chelik of Beis, page 184 and onwards. And the audio is available online. If you can't find it, send me a message and I'll be able to share it with you. Rabbi Gerari is here.
Was that the pink Tanya?
Huh?
Is that the little pink Tanya?
No, that was Tafshin Mem Dalet. That was something else.
So what year are you talking about?
This is Tafshin Mem Aleph, 40 years ago.
Wow.
So Lamed Hey was the first time that the Tanya was printed with English and side by side. And here, this was Hoitzah format Kis. So it was a pocket edition of that same type of Tanya.
Shkoyach, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Gerari.
Good evening to everyone. Could everybody see me? Am I holding the phone good? Yes? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sehr gut.
Okay, gebencht soll zu sein. Good evening, a guten Chodesh Nissen, and Chassidus explains something amazing, that the first day of the year is Rosh Hashanah, but the first month of the year is Chodesh Nissen. How is this possible that the first day of the year is in one time and the first month of the year is completely 7 months later? So Chassidus explains that the word Chodesh comes from the word Chidush. There is the Seder that the Eibishter creates the world every second, but with a system. The system is called Teva. No difference. Every second, everything that happens is an act of Hashem. Chassidus even brings the lashon of the Chacham Tzvi in Nigle. The Chacham Tzvi says that Teva is Nisim Tekufim, Nisim that happens every second, but it's all an act of Hashem. There is such a treifa word. I don't know if it's in Manchester, but in America, there is such a treifa word called Mother Nature. As if, chas v'sholom, there is something that happens by itself. This is totally apikarsis. There's no such a thing as Mother Nature. The Eibishter has to make it happen every second. Everything that happens is an act of Hashem. And he has to actually actively make it happen. Not to get off to a side, but be'emes, it's negeya for every yid to know that every second that he lives, every second Hashem has to actively want that your heart should pump again and another breath. David HaMelech signs off the Tehillim, Kollel Neshama Tahalel Ka Hallelujah. Says Midrashim, Kollel Neshama could also mean Neshima, breath. David HaMelech said that on every breath that he takes, he realizes this is not to take for granted. Hashem has to want that breath to happen again. He makes it happen. So there's no such a thing as it's automatic, it's happening by itself. This is chas v'shalom v'chas v'shalom. But there is a certain order that Hashem purposely makes. And we need to remember always that it's always Hashem, not that it's happening by itself. But there's a consistency and a seder. And that Seder we call Teva. Then there is another system and another order of Nissim, of things that are supernatural, that defies the rules of nature, defies the system. And how many Nissim? All of that, there is a Rosh Hashanah. There's a Rosh Hashanah for Nissim, for Chadashim, Chodesh Lashon Chidush, something new in the world. And Nissim is, everyone understands that Nissim alone comes from the word miracles. So today, it's still, by you, it's still the night, Bakotchim, Laila, Hoyle Chacha Hayoim. Today is a Moiredike day. Today is Rosh Hashanah for Nissim for the whole coming year. The Eibishter should bench us that the biggest nest that we're waiting for is the nest that the Eibishter should bring Mashiach and take us out of Golus. And then the whole year will be already, forget it, what kind of unbelievable year there'll be. So this is very important to know the significance of this day and the significance of this night. This is Beis Nissan. Beis Nissan has two aspects. It's the Yom Ha'ilula, the Yom Estalkos of the Rebbe Rashab. But to our Rebbe, the way the Rebbe looked at Beis Nissan is the day that the Frierdiker Rebbe became Nasi. And that's why it's so special. So it's very important to learn from this how a Chassid has to look on the day of the Yom of the Kabbalah and the Seas, which to us is Yud Shvat, and that is, besides being the day of the Stalkos of the Frierdiker Rebbe, how the Rebbe taught us to be miyaka. What does it mean? Yud Shvat, the day that we have our Rebbe is our Rebbe. Now I would like to continue. We're middle of talking about Pesach, and there's a few inyanim that I still have to be mashlim to what we talked last week, and then to go on to the rest of the days of Pesach. We spoke in length that matzah on Pesach is moiridik. Matzah on Pesach is michle de hemnusa, michle de asvasa, which gives us his chaskus in emunah for our whole life that we all need desperately, because the emunah alone is a koyach makif. And in order to realize what we believe and to live like that, we need help. And this help is the eating of the matzah on Leil Pesach, and like the Mittler Rebbe says, throughout the whole Pesach. Then we spoke that the Alter Rebbe says that there's another madrege in matzah that was the Gilui of Melech Malchei Amlachim, that was be'ikar for the Yidden, and this happens every year again on Pesach. And this Gilui Melech Malchei Amlachim went into the matzah. And the Alter Rebbe explained that now, today, we don't have to wait till after Chatzos to the rest of the Pesach. But the matzah that we eat before Chatzos, the Mitzvah Hashem, this coming Pesach, we're going to have both madreges. It's going to be Michle de Hamnusa, Michle de Asfasa, and the Gilui of Melech Malchei Amlachim will have that in the matzah. and that I mentioned last week, that the Rebbe Marash says that this means in Pashut words that the matzah gashmi that we eat on Pesach is Elokus. Pashut begashmis matzah, we're eating godliness. And the Rebbe Marash says that this means that our dam ubasa throughout Pesach, where gashmistic body is living off godliness. This gives us a tremendous koyach that the yontif of Pesach, how we're going to learn, how we're going to daven, how we're going to do mitzvahs, living off such kind of food. It reminds me of what it says in Chassidus. The Medrash says, "Lo nidnu ha'Torah ela la'ochlei haman." The man was given to the Yidden even before Matan Torah. And the Alter and the Chazal say that dafke because they lived off man with such a holy food, so they were able to be zeicher to get Kabbalah Torah. So we see that the man Pashut was a hachane to be a keli for Matan Torah. This coming Pesach, when we are Mitzvah Hashem going to eat this matzah, the Torah tells us that this gives us gewaltige koyach, that our guf hagashmi will be living off godliness, like the man in Midbar before Matan, even before Matan Torah. So let me continue. There's also something that I didn't mention last week, that if you look into the Haggadah is written purposely in a way that it's a question and an answer. Because the whole Haggadah is ki yisholcha bincha. When your child will ask, so you should answer. So the whole Haggadah is question and answer. When it comes to matzah and maror, you'll notice that it says the words matzah zu she'onu oichlim al shum ma. Literally, the Pashut Pshat is, it's a question. So why are we eating matzah? But every word in the Torah and in the Haggadah every word is godliness. So when it says matzah zu she'onu oichlim al shum ma, wow, this is another pshat. Ma is known in Chassidus that the word ma stands for bittul. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron and Moshe said to the Eibishter, Va'anachnu ma, who are we? We have nothing. Everything we have is from Hashem. Everything Chassidus is all, the center is more. If you learn in Derech Mitzvah, in the mitzvah of Achdus Hashem, the Tzemach Tzedek, I would suggest that everybody looks this up, because it says some very powerful words. And there the Tzemach Tzedek writes that the Kollel Chassidus is bittul, not to be yesh. That's the whole Chassidus. It's not like an important part. That's the bottom line of the ganze Chassidus. Ma. B'meile. Incidentally, also, as we probably spoke about, that the Alter Rebbe is very busy with this ma, and he speaks about Chochma. The Yid has a koyach Chochma. What's Chochma? Koyach ma. 2 words. Koyach ma. The whole Tanya is busy with this Ma. Moshe Rabbeinu is Ma. The Neshama is Ma. What's Chochmah Atzilis? Bottle, Hulavadehu Veinzu. Everything, the central theme of the Tanya is Ma. So let's go now back to our God. Matzezu she'onu oichlim is al shumah. We need to get this bittul to the Eibishter. And this is what matzah gives us, because the hiskashris to the Eibishter. Not only is bittul a tanai, there is a bittul that we can't get on our own. This is a gift that we get when we eat matzah. It gives us this total devotion to the Eibishter. Matzah zu she'anu oichlim al shumah. Derech Agav, and it's not so Derech Agav, that the Gemara talks about. There's a mitzvah that we have to make meya brachas every day. How do we know this? We learn this out from a pasuk where the Torah says, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to the Bnei Yisrael, Mo Hashem elikecha shoyel mi'imach kiyim li'ira. The Eibishter is not asking too much. He's only asking for everything. It starts off with yira, which means bittul. And once you have this bittul, you'll do everything that the Eibishter wants. But from these words, Ve'ata Yisrael, Mo Hashem elikecha shoyel mi'imach, the Gemara says that we learn out. Don't read it just Mo. Read it as if it would say with an aleph, Al tikra Mo ela meya. And from this we learn out that a yid should make 100 brachas every day. And it's a halach in the Shulchan Aruch. Interesting to note that it says in the Sichos from the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Rebbe Rashab would make sure that there shouldn't be an hour in the day that he doesn't make a bracha. What did he do if he didn't have what to make a bracha? Or he would say a kapitel, a Kuf Yutes, there's a pasuk, Baruch atah Adonai lamdeini chukecha. So that was also like a bracha. I'll call upon him. So the question is, why does the Eibishter have to say more? And you should learn out that it's Meir. What way the Eibishter can say straight, say Meir? It says more, and it says don't only read it more, read it Meir. So Chassidus explains that everything in the Torah is betachlis perfect. How can you get to more? We spoke about matzah, but throughout the year, how can I get to this more? To be megala in myself, the more. I'll take more, you need to say meya brachas. So it's not just connected from one word being a, no. How can I get to more? I need to make meya brachas. Going back now to Pesach. In Pesach, there is 7 days of Pesach. Or by us in Golus, it's 8 days. The first 2 days of Pesach, Be'ikar, is the celebration of what happened that we went out of Mitzrayim. But the emes is that we still were not finished with the Mitzrayim. As we all know that the Mitzrayim ran after the Jewish people. And if not, they kept on running by the Yam Suf. They were still running after us. And if not, the miracle of Kriyas Yam Suf and all the Egyptians drowned in the Yam Suf would be gefährlich, would be taken all back, and the whole thing would be for nothing. So Be'emes, Yetzias Mitzrayim was not completed till Shvi Shel Pesach, till the nest of Shvi Shel Pesach. So the difference between the first 2 days and the last 2 days, Alpi Pashtis, is the first 2 days is about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the last 2 days is the Gemara of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Maisa of Kriyas Yam Suf, which completed totally the inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We don't have now time to cover everything, so we'll talk more about Kriyas Yam Suf. But there's also what to talk about Achin Shel Pesach, and we'll see when we could talk about this. But what really went on Shvi Shel Pesach is, without Chassidus, is missing tremendous information and insight of what is Shvi Shel Pesach. The story of Kriyas Yam Suf has a lot of questions that without Chassidus is really very difficult to understand. Number one, if the Eibishter wanted to get rid of the Mitzrayim, does he have to drown them? The Eibishter could just 1 second stop creating them. As we all know, that the Baal Shem Tov teaches us that every second the Eibishter creates the world yesh mi'ayin. The greatest miracle of all miracles is the creation every second. That the world be'etzem has no existence, no chance of existence. And the Eibishter has to actively want to create the world from the beginning, every second. So if the Eibishter wants to we should get rid of the Egyptians, he has to drown them. So why did we need this whole thing? And the Jews, don't ask what they went through. Before they went to the Yam, the Jews split up to 4 different camps. You have Jews, you have 2 Jews in a room, you have 3 opinions, 4 opinions here. The Jews, soon as they came to the Yam, there were 4 different opinions what to do. But they were really scared. The Egyptians are running after them. And the Eibishter says, guess what? Keep on going. Keep on going. There's like a Yam here. It's like kind of a little bit... what do you mean keep on going? Okay, so we know from the Gemara that Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped, he didn't ask no questions. Moshe Rabbeinu said in the name of Hashem, keep on going. No problem. So Nachshon ben Aminadav didn't have a clue that a miracle is going to happen. The Eibishter says, go. He went. Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped into the water and not knowing of any miracle. And soon as the water got to his mouth, that's when the Red Sea split. And by Hasidim, Shvi Shel Pesach, it says, is Rosh Hashanah for Mesiras Nefesh. Rosh Hashanah, just like every Rosh Hashanah, is Hamshacha for the whole year. Shvi Shel Pesach by Hasidim is the day that we're given the koyach of Mesiras Nefesh. Rosh Hashanah for Mesiras Nefesh. But let's go back to the question. why did the Eibishter need to split the Yam and drown the Egyptians? The Jewish people went through plenty in Egypt. Now, why do we need to split the Red Sea? Question number 2. The Yam Suf, by splitting the Red Sea, did not get the Jews any closer to Eretz Yisrael, because the Yam split, and made way a pass, or according to some opinions, there were 12 paths. Every Shevet had their own tunnel how to go. But where did it lead? It was a U-turn. The Gemara says, "Ba'oisei tzad sheyardu," on the same side that they went down to the Yam, on that same side, they came back up. So the splitting of the Red Sea did not help the Jews getting 1 inch closer to Eretz Yisrael. So the question is, so then what was the whole purpose of Kriyas Yam Suf? Question number 3. Not only did the Red Sea split, all the seas and all the lakes and all wherever there was water, it became a split. The Hafach Yam Layabash. The question becomes, the Eibishter doesn't make a miracle in vain. It's clear, Chazal, loy ovid, kutshubrichu, nisse limagona. The Eibishter does not make miracles for no reason. So why did he have to split all seas? If he needed for the Yidden somehow, but why did he have to split every sea in the world? Another question. Very interesting. While the Yidden are passing by the Yam Suf, then they had an incredible revelation. They were mamish, like they became like prophets. As much as the Gemara says that a shifcha, a maid, saw a revelation while going through the Yam, that even Yecheskel ben Buzi, one of the greatest prophets, did not have a revelation as what even a shifcha had going through the Red Sea. This becomes very, very strange. Now is a time to give a revelation. You want to give them a revelation, let them sit down, relax. They're going through the Yam. They didn't, 2 minutes ago, the Egyptians were running after them. Now they have to be prophets. What is the connection with becoming prophets while the sea split? And Chassidus explains that we have the whole story. We don't understand the depth of what Kriyas Yam Suf really was. Kriyas Yam Suf was not about a way to get rid of the Egyptians. It was not to get closer to Eretz Yisrael. It was for something completely different. Being that the Yidden really went out of Mitzrayim for one purpose, to get closer to Matan Torah. Matan Torah was the greatest revelation that ever took place in the history of the world. Not only was this the greatest revelation, in Chassidus there is a pisgam, there is a famous saying that Nochamol Matan Torah wird nicht sein. There'll never be another Matan Torah. This is a one and only revelation that never was, and never there'll be something like it. And what that means, we'll leave for another time. But it was the greatest revelation that can be in order to just coming back from Mitzrayim, they needed a preparation for this great revelation of Matan Torah. And this was the whole purpose of Kriyas Yamsuf, the revelation that I just mentioned, that the Yidden became like prophets while they were in the Yam. That was not something incidental, a side issue. That was the whole purpose of Kriyas Yamsuf, that the Yidden should experience this kind of revelation that will prepare them for Matan Torah. So what does this have to do with the Kriyas Yamsuf? So we'll explain this very beautifully. Chassidus explains that everything that's here in this physical world is a copy, a carbon copy of what goes on in the spiritual worlds. It first is in the spiritual way, and it comes down also in the physical way. What is sea in the spiritual worlds? And what is land in the spiritual world? Water and land is, in simple words, everything that's on land, you could see. All the creations, all the plants, everything that goes on in the world is open, is revealed. But under the water, everything that exists on land exists also underwater. This is a clear chazal. Kol ma sheyesh bayabosha, yesh bayam. Very interesting. So what's the difference? Everything that's under the water is concealed. We don't see it. But on land, everything we could see. So in different words, Yam represents concealment, and land represents open, revealed. There are, on our world, everything that is higher than us is to us concealed. It's called Yam to us. Everything that is on a low level, this is revealed. But the truth is, we don't see the reality. The reality is hidden. As we spoke many times, that the word olam, Chassidus says olam comes from the word helem. Everything is around, but we don't see it. It's the problem is we don't see it, but it's here. So what did Hashem do to prepare us for Matan Torah? He opened up the Yam upstairs. He split the sea from heaven, the spiritual sea, the hidden worlds, the higher worlds that are hidden from us. That's what he opened up. So if spiritually the world of concealment suddenly became revealed, then automatically all the waters below automatically became dry. Hafach yam liyabasha. The only reason there is a yam and Yabasha down here is because there's a Yam and a Yabasha up there. I don't mean up physically, but on a higher level, there is a Yam and there is a Yabasha. But if Hashem changed the system, unbelievable miracle. The Eibishter opened up the spiritual Yam. So automatically the Yidden were like prophets. This wasn't a side miracle. That's the whole purpose. Opening up the Yam meant that the Yidden down on this world experienced the hidden worlds, different reality. The Mele. Now we can understand the whole purpose of, and now we understand why the Eibishter split the sea. We also understand why there were miracles, and they felt like prophets. And there's more and more to talk, but we'll go back to the Nekuda. So what is Shvi Shel Pesach? Not only was this a tremendous miracle, that the Gemara calls Kriyas Yamsuf, like, wow, when you want to talk about something that is difficult, not Chas v'Sholem, it's difficult for the Eibishter, but it's a different system. We use the Dugma, Kasha Kriyas Yamsuf. It is so difficult to change Hashem's system of Teva, and made this miraculous miracle that is Kriyas Yamsuf. Now, Kriyas Yamsuf has a whole different dimension. And every year, when it comes Shvi Shel Pesach, the Eibishter opens up the hidden worlds, and he reveals this to every Yid who's observing the Yontif of Shvi Shel Pesach. And that is why I'm sure everybody knows that by Hasidim, we're up Shvi Shel Pesach, and we learn Chassidus, because the whole idea of Kriyas Yamsuf is that the Eibishter revealed himself. And that is by learning Pnimius HaTorah, which was till now, till the Baal Shem Tov was hidden, and now is Nisgale, this Indian of Pnimius HaTorah to be connected to a different reality. The reality of the hidden, what was always hidden, is now made revealed to us. And the time to tune in to this Gilui is Shvi Shel Pesach, and this is why it's such a gewaldige holy yontif. I could say that I'm sure many of you know that by the Rabbeim, Shvi Shel Pesach was the biggest Geluyim that the Frierdiker Rebbe says that Erev Shvi Shel Pesach. After the Rebbe Rashab went to the mikveh Erev Yontif, the door was a little open, I think it says, and how his father looked and how he acted. Erev Shvi Shel Pesach was gewaldige Geluyim, because our Rebbe knows and feels what is Shvi Shel Pesach. I was once had the schus to be by the Rebbe when the Rebbe would have a Suda by the Rebbetzin on the second floor of 770, and it was Shvi Shel Pesach. It says in the Siches from the Frierdiker Rebbe, moiredike words about Shvi Shel Pesach, and it says there that I think in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, that the Eibishter pours tremendous Giluyim to every Yid on Shvi Shel Pesach. So there was a chassid. Everybody knows that there was a very special yid who was very helpful to the Frierdiker Rebbe. His name was Reb Yankov Katz Oliver Shalom. And because of his chus of how much he did for the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe valued him and was mekar of him very much. And he would always be, by Yom Tov Sudis, he would be invited to be one of the guests by the Suda. And Rabbi Yankov Katz, by the Suda, and I witnessed this, asked the Rebbe, he quoted this Sikha that the Eibishter paused. So he says to the Rebbe, so how do you pick it up? How do you get this, what's being poured? The Rebbe only said one word. Mahatoch Keshenis. The Rebbe, as probably you learned about this, the Rebbe, when he was sitting by the table of the Frierdiker Rebbe's on the second floor, the Rebbe would sit with such a yiras hakavod that this is the place of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and you can't even imagine the Rebbe, the way how the Rebbe acted there. And every word was measured and counted. And here he's asking this Pashat Yid. He was a very simple Yid. He didn't know Chachmas. He asked the Rebbe, so how do you pick this up? What's given on Shvi Shel Pesach? And the Rebbe only answered, Mahat Keshenis. So I remember, like today, right after the Seudah, there was Chazorah of everything, what the Rebbe said, and everyone wanted to know. Not everybody got in and wanted to know, what did the Rebbe answer? And the only thing they knew is that the Rebbe said Keshenis. So there was a whole shakla b'tarya. Does Keshenis mean you got to give tzedakah? Because Rabbi Yankov Katz was a muradik about tzedakah, so it would fit. Maybe that's what the Rebbe meant. Or, yeah, the Yid is a Keshenis. Every Yid is a Keli, as it says in Tanya. But it's very interesting. I'm giving you some very interesting insights of what went on, that on this day, the Rebbe only said Mahatach Keshenis. So getting back to the Nekuda. So every year, Pesach is a moiredik Yom Tov that we are getting from the Eibishter moiredik koiches beyond our kalim, beyond our hachanis. It's a matana l'mayla. It's a sarusa d'le'ele, especially when it speaks about Kriyas Yamsuf. When it says in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to pray more, and the Eibishter said, "Ve'atem tachrishun." It's a time for you. You have to be silent. What means silence? You got to pray. What did the Eibishter mean? Ve'atem tachrishun. I think it says in the Targum. Hello.
Yeah, we hear every word.
Targum. Hello. It says in the Targum, "Va'atem loy sesarun mide." You shouldn't make any hisoyeres no matter. And Chassidus says, and the Zoya says, "Va'atika talya mit milse." What's going on now by Kriyas Yamsuf is higher than a Sarusa Dilatata. It's a gift that only the Eibishter could give. So every year, when it comes this time, we are getting tremendous koiches that will last us forever. But we have to prepare for this. We have to start with beer chametz, bedikas chametz, and get rid of our chametz to be a keli for all these galuyim. The Eibishter should help us that we should prepare spiritually for this gewaldige Yom Tov and everyone should have a kosher freilich and Pesach with all the brachas that the Eibishter gives everybody. Good Yom Tov.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rabbi Geraris, for the special effort.
You're welcome.
Despite everything, thank you, Rabbi Kivman. Emir Hashem. Nachamal. Next week we'll have it on another week before Pesach, maybe.
It's Hashem, we'll see will. Sei gebencht.
Yerushalayim Akedesh.
Amen.